I didn't realize a marriage could die so quietly that you don't even hear the last heartbeat. I always thought endings were loud, violent things filled with slammed doors and harsh sentences you can't take back. But mine began the night my wife laughed at me across a crowded nightclub, pressed against a man she'd met an hour earlier, and dared me to divorce her. She said it like a challenge, like she expected me to stutter or freeze or try to negotiate my dignity back. "You don't like it? Then divorce me," she whispered against my ear with a smirk that wasn't meant for me. And I knew she expected some kind of meltdown, some wounded husband performance that would feed her narrative. Instead, I just smiled. "Cool," I said. "I already started." The look on her face, shock draining into panic, was almost cinematic. But before you think this is a story about cheating or revenge, you need to understand something. The real betrayal happened long before the nightclub, long before the late nights and the perfume I didn't recognize. It began with a joke. Or at least that's what she called it. 12 weeks earlier, we were at a rooftop barbecue in Austin with the city glowing behind us. I was manning the grill, flipping chicken, wearing the stupid apron she bought me back when our jokes were gentle and never meant to cut. She was across the patio in a group of friends, holding a drink and performing like the spotlight was on her. I heard my name somewhere in the middle of her story. "Ethan does everything by the book," she said, tossing her hair. Honestly, he would write a risk assessment before hugging me. A few people laughed. Then she pushed harder. "He's not a husband, he's a walking insurance policy. Safe, predictable, and painfully boring." They laughed louder this time, and someone joked, "If he's that stable, I'll take him." Everyone looked at me in this half-amused, half-pitying way. I forced a smile, but something inside me dipped, like a quiet elevator drop. That night, in our kitchen washed by city lights, I asked her why she said it. She rolled her eyes. "You're too sensitive." It was a joke. Everyone jokes. "Not like that," I said. "Not in front of people." She shrugged. "If you were more fun, I'd have nicer things to tease you about." It wasn't the words that hurt. It was how easy they came to her. How natural it felt for her to impress others by slicing me open. That was the first cut, but not the last. Over the next weeks, the distance grew. She came home later, claiming girls' nights or networking events. She started posting cryptic quotes on Instagram about being misunderstood, about choosing freedom, about not shrinking yourself to fit someone else's idea of love. At home, everything about her tone suggested she was inconvenienced by my existence. Every time I tried talking about us, she shut me down with sarcasm. She liked me quiet. It made her the hero of her own story. I convinced myself it was temporary. I loved stability. I didn't want conflict. But one afternoon, I met with my friend Noah, a therapist who never sugarcoated anything. After listening to me recount the barbecue incident and the growing coldness, he asked one question that gutted me. "When was the last time she was kind to you in public?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He leaned back. "Ethan, that's not marriage. That's public relations." I went home that night and watched her laugh at something on her phone. Louder than she had laughed with me in months. Something in me twisted. Not jealousy. Recognition. I wasn't losing her. I had already lost her. I just hadn't noticed the moment it snapped. 3 weeks later, the truth hit me fully by accident. I was walking past our half-closed bedroom door when I heard her voice. Not soft, not emotional, sharp. Rehearsed. "I feel emotionally abandoned," she was saying. "He's so quiet and cold. I think he's depressed or checked out completely." My heart thudded. Then she said the part that made everything inside me still. "Once he files, I'll finally be free." My breath caught. My wife wasn't confused or struggling. She had a plan. She wasn't trying to save the marriage. She was engineering the ending, shaping herself into the victim before anything even happened. In that moment, something quiet inside me hardened. Not anger, clarity. She wanted me to be the villain so she could leave with sympathy. She wanted the narrative, the pity, the house. And she wanted me to hand it to her silently. The next morning, without telling her, I researched divorce lawyers. I found one named Marissa. Calm voice, steady eyes. The kind of presence that feels like stepping into a storm shelter. I sat in her office and told her I wanted things to stay civil, clean, 50-50ths. She looked at me like I was speaking in riddles. "You're describing a PR campaign, not a marriage," she said. "If you remain passive, your wife gets to write your story. And you will not like the ending." She slid a pen toward me. "Start documenting. No confrontations. Everything matters later." I nodded, feeling something inside me realign. After leaving her office, I felt a strange sensation. Purpose. Like I'd been drifting underwater and suddenly found a floor to push off from. Then came the phone call that shifted everything further. Her younger sister, Maya, called out of the blue. Her voice trembled as she said, "Can we talk? Just us." We met at a diner during a slow rain. She looked exhausted, like someone who'd been carrying secrets too heavy for her frame. She stirred her coffee for a long time before speaking. "Ethan, I don't think you understand what's happening," she said softly. "Lena isn't confused. This is what she does. When she's bored, she rewrites the relationship so she can leave without looking like the bad guy." My stomach clenched. "She told me about a guy," Maya continued, lowering her voice. "Some investment guy from an event. I don't know how serious it is, but she talks like she's planning her next chapter." I swallowed hard. "Why tell me?" She looked away. "Because you're a good man, and I can't watch her burn someone else to feel interesting." Before she left, she pushed a napkin toward me, a number for a private investigator. "If you need proof," she whispered. Proof. I hated that word. Hated that I might need it. But I kept the napkin. And that night, I began documenting everything. The late nights, the excuses, the credit card charges that didn't match her stories, the texts she hid, the tone she used when talking about me to others. Not angry, just observant, silent but no longer blind. She thought silence made me easy to manipulate. She didn't realize silence can also be strategy. From then on, my nights stopped being about waiting for her to come home and became about watching the shape of the truth get sharper. I wrote down times, locations, tone of voice. 10:42 p.m. Home late. Smells like a stranger's cologne. 1:13 a.m. Laughs at message. Hide screen when I walk by. Quiet little notes that, on their own, might mean nothing, but together looked a lot like a map leading away from our marriage. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse her. I didn't fall apart. On paper, I was the same man I'd always been. Steady, reliable, a little too quiet. Inside, I was something else entirely. Awake. A week later, I called the number on the napkin Maya gave me. The private investigator's voice was clipped, professional, bored in the way only someone who has seen too many messy lives can be. I gave him the basics, told him I didn't want anything illegal, just clarity. "You're not the first quiet husband to make this call," he said. "You probably won't be the last." I didn't know whether to be comforted or horrified by that. Days turned into a strange dual existence. In one life, I was still the husband making coffee, taking out the trash, asking her if she needed anything from the store. In the other, I was a man collecting evidence that the person he loved had already left him months ago and simply forgotten to pack her toothbrush. I saw the signs more clearly now. The way she lit up for her phone in a way she no longer did for me. The way her Instagram stories painted her as this tragic, unappreciated heroine reclaiming herself, while I was the ghost in the background washing dishes and paying bills. Online, she was a phoenix rising from the ashes of an emotionally distant husband. Offline, I was the one holding the hose trying to keep the house from burning down. One afternoon, Marissa called me into her office. She had a manila folder on her desk and a look that said she'd seen enough to form an opinion. The investigator's report was thorough. Too thorough. You know that feeling when your stomach drops on a roller coaster and your body insists you're dying even though you're strapped in and technically safe? That's what it felt like reading through timestamps, photos, receipts from places she'd never mentioned visiting. I wasn't shocked by the fact there was someone else. That part of me had already known. What stunned me was how calculated it all was. The way she staggered her girls' nights with self-care days. How she'd tell one story to her family, another to her friends, and live a third in the dark corners of hotel bars and ride shares. I closed the folder and sat back, feeling more still than broken. "You okay?" Marissa asked. I surprised both of us by nodding. "Yeah," I said, "because now I know I'm not crazy." She nodded once. "So, next step. We file. Quietly. Clean language. No screaming match, no theatrics. You said you want out with your dignity. This is how we do it." I signed the documents. My hand didn't even shake. There's this strange, almost sacred silence that happens when you finally stop bargaining with reality. It's like the noise in your head dies down, and for the first time, you can hear your own pulse. On the drive home, the city felt different. Same streets, same buildings, but I wasn't the same man moving through them. I wasn't the boy hoping his wife would suddenly turn around and say, "I'm sorry, let's fix this." I was the man quietly walking toward the exit. For a few days after we filed, nothing changed visibly. She still came home late, still left mugs with lipstick stains in the sink, still scrolled on her phone in bed with her back to me, casting her screen's blue light on the wall like it was our nightlight. But something had changed. In me, the part that used to ache every time she chose anything over me, had gone numb. Not dead, just done. Then came the night at the club. She left at 7 p.m., dressed in a way she hadn't dressed for me in, I honestly couldn't remember how long. Her perfume wasn't the one we picked out together years ago. It was something louder, sharper, attention-seeking. "Girls' night," she said, not even pretending to sell it. "Don't wait up." "I won't," I replied, and for the first time I meant it. Hours passed. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. I wasn't pacing. I wasn't checking the time every minute. I was sitting at the dining table with my laptop open, our legal folder beside it, and a kind of peace that felt almost inappropriate given the situation. At 11:52 p.m., I called her. I don't know why that specific time. Maybe I just wanted to be able to write it down. She answered on the third ring. Music and bass and laughter swelled through the speaker like another world was leaking into mine. "Well, well," she shouted over the noise. "Look who remembered he has a wife." "What's up, Dad?" I ignored the jab. "You out with Amanda again?" I asked, my tone so calm it sounded like a stranger was speaking through me. She laughed, messy and delighted with herself. "Sure, let's call it that. You don't like it? There's a simple fix. Get a divorce." I felt myself smile. It was wild how light it felt. "I already did," I said. Silence. The music was still there, the murmur of voices, the clink of glasses, but she stopped existing for a full 2 seconds. "What?" she finally breathed. "Papers were filed yesterday. You'll be served Monday. And just so we're clear, you're not getting the house." She hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment, then put it down. No rush of triumph. No shot of adrenaline. Just a deeper calm, like stepping off a treadmill you didn't realize was still running. At 12:16 a.m., the front door flew open. Her heels hammered against the hardwood. Her purse hit the counter hard enough to knock over the mail. "You filed for divorce?" she demanded, eyes wide. Mascara smudged just enough to make her look more wrecked than she probably felt. "Why?" I looked at her like I was seeing her clearly for the first time in years. "Because you stopped being my wife long before tonight," I said. "I just finally stopped pretending you didn't." She blinked rapidly, caught off guard by the lack of shouting. "This is about me going out? Seriously? Everyone goes out. You're such a control freak." "No." I cut in, my voice low. "This isn't about tonight. This is about the nights you spent rewriting me to other people, while I was at home trying to hold together a story you'd already abandoned." "You're overreacting," she snapped. "You always do this. You twist things. You make yourself the victim." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so on script it was pathetic. "I've got something you'll find interesting," I said instead, sliding the folder across the table. Timelines, bank statements, pictures, conversations. The investigator did thorough work. For the first time, a different kind of fear flickered in her eyes. Not the fear of losing me, the fear of losing the narrative. You hired a PI? She yelled. That's insane. No, I said. You know what's insane? Trying to provoke somebody into filing for divorce so you can walk away with sympathy and assets while telling everyone you were emotionally abandoned. That's insane. Her face went pale. You don't understand, she whispered. I was unhappy. I felt trapped. I needed attention. I finished for her. You needed to be the main character. You always do. She stared at me, tears gathering in her eyes, and once upon a time that would have broken me. But now all I saw was someone upset that her script had been leaked before opening night. We can talk about this, she said, softer now, switching tones like changing costumes. We can go to counseling, we can. I picked up my bag and slung it over my shoulder. I tried to talk, I said. You turned our marriage into an audience. I'm done performing. I walked past her, opened the front door, and paused only once. I'll be staying at Noah's until this is finalized, I added. You'll have plenty of time to explain your version to whoever's still listening. Behind me, her voice wobbled, Ethan, wait. But I didn't. For the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't stop to soften the blow for her. I stepped into the hallway and pulled the door shut. The click sounded nothing like the slam people expect at the end of a marriage. It was quiet, final. 3 months later, I woke up to the sound of waves instead of the buzz of city traffic and the tension of someone scrolling angrily beside me in bed. I'd moved to a small beach town a day's drive away, into a rental that was a little too small and a little too drafty. But it was mine. White siding, tall grass, windows that actually opened. Most mornings I made coffee barefoot in the kitchen, opened my laptop on a wobbly wooden table, and logged into the same job she used to mock for being too safe. Turns out, the safe little job came with flexible hours and a boss who actually noticed when I started smiling more on Zoom calls. I made friends slowly, neighbors who waved without pretense, a retired couple next door who invited me over for potlucks, a carpenter who lived down the street and liked to sit on the beach at sunset and talk about nothing and everything. There were dinners where the plates didn't match and the conversation wasn't a performance. Laughter that didn't leave bruises. I rediscovered something I thought was gone for good. Stillness. Not the kind of stillness that numbs you, but the kind that feels like a deep breath you didn't know your lungs were capable of. One evening, walking back from the farmer's market with a bag of vegetables, I pretended I knew how to cook. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Noah with a screenshot attached. A social media post. Lena's name tagged. She was at some party, looking tired in a way that makeup couldn't hide. The caption wasn't hers, but the comments told the story. Someone mentioned she'd been couch surfing after a situation with her boyfriend went south. Another said, she deserves better. She's been through so much, with no idea how much of what she'd been through was a script she wrote for herself. I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, staring at the screen. I waited for the rush of vindication, the satisfaction, the I told you so. It didn't come. Instead, what I felt was quiet. Not joy at her misfortune. Not longing. Just a kind of detached sadness that anyone would rather burn their life down theatrically than admit they were wrong in a whisper. I locked my phone, listened to the ocean in the distance, and kept walking. Karma hadn't sent a lightning bolt. It hadn't handed me some dramatic courtroom victory or public confession. It had done something much simpler. It stepped out of the way and let her live in the story she built. No husband to blame. No safe man to absorb the impact. Just her and the narratives she'd spun, turning in on themselves. People sometimes ask if I regret anything. If I regret not fighting harder, not yelling more, not trying one more time to fix it. The answer is no. I regret all the years I confused being quiet with being strong. I regret the times I let jokes land like punches and laughed along so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I regret staying longer in a burning house with a broken hose than I should have, telling myself that if I just breathed in the smoke a little longer, maybe she'd notice I was choking. But walking away, filing first, refusing to play the villain in a story I didn't write, I don't regret that for a single second. She didn't break me. She forced me to notice I'd been disappearing. There's a difference. Some nights, I sit on my small balcony with a mug of coffee or a cheap beer, listen to the ocean, and think about the man I used to be. The one who believed love meant enduring whatever came, even if what came was disrespect disguised as humor and abandonment dressed up as freedom. If you're listening to this and some part of your chest feels tight because you recognize yourself in him, I'll tell you what I wish someone had told me much earlier. Being calm doesn't mean you have to be a doormat. Walking away isn't failure. Sometimes it's the first honest sentence in a story that's been lying to itself for years. At the end of it all, my marriage didn't end in an explosion. It ended in a quiet decision made in a lawyer's office and a soft click of a door behind me. It ended when I stopped asking, "How do I make her stay?" and started asking, "Do I even want to stay with someone who needs me to be the villain?" That's the truth. She thought daring me to divorce her at a nightclub was the climax of her performance. Turned out to be the end of my audition. I walked off her stage. And out here, far from the lights and the noise, the life I'm building doesn't need an audience to feel real.